Hey chess guys, how's it going? There was a tournament that just ended, the Sharjah Masters, the winner of which was Daneshvar. He became champion by drawing all of his games. He didn't lose any, and the ones he did win, and he won several, he won 4, he won all of them playing as black. Yes, my friends, a very rare feat. He finished the tournament ahead of Hans Niemann, ahead of Shankland, Tabatabai Erigaizi, ahead of Abhimanyu Mishra and Hans Niemann, whom I've already mentioned. Sindarov, man. This tournament by Daneshvar is unbelievable. We're going to show you here, who did he beat? Look, man, he scored 6.5 points. And we are going to see 3 of the 4 games he won, but he won them all with black, man. It's impressive. It's really incredible, right? He finished first, won in the tiebreaker, tied here with Volodar and Shankland. Shankland's in good form, right? Moritzi finished 22nd here. Niemann is also down here in 16th place. Hans Niemann and all that, right? So let's take a look at 3 of these matches. He's playing with the black pieces here against Andrei Sipenko, folks. Andrei Sipenko, the super grandmaster, has already won against Andrei Sipenko, right? Pedrera, come on, Rafa. How come he only has 2,581? First of all, it's just a statement, but I see what you mean, right? How is it that a player with 2,700 points, for example, wasn't a champion and he has 2,581, right? He achieved this great feat. It's worth mentioning that Daneshvar is a new player. He's 18 years old and has recently started to rise in the ranks, right? So he's a rising player. The match here against Andrei Sipenko started with the king's pawn. He played a Caro-Kann. Look there, check out Molina. Our master Molina is already excited about it. Caro-Kann player, right? And here it's fashionable to play this variation with c5 directly, right? In the old days, it was fashionable to play this f5 bishop. Then it started to become difficult for the crowd. The gang found some good lines for white. Now c5 is trendy. Knight develops. We have exchanges. Knight attacks the queen, and the queen stays here in f4, protecting the pawn, attacking the king's window. That one was played. The knight comes into the game, and the knight b4 directly attacking the pawn. Modern theory, right? It's worth it. It's interesting to note that the class has these opening preparations, and they go for moves that aren't very natural, right? Like, for example, this move knight b4, but it already brings problems, so much so that bishop d3 was played, and so Daneshvar already gets rid of the pair of bishops. 2, Ipenko knight e7 was played, h4, nice idea. 2, Ipenko knight comes to g6, attacked queen moves h5, keeping the knight on g6 square, avoiding Andrei's h5. We continue with bishop g5. The queen comes for the counter game, and now the Arak poisoning the b2 pawn. A pawn that Daneshvar doesn't capture because of the rook on c1. White starts to gain an initiative here, right? For example, the rook is on file b. The queen has only 1 square, right? Would it be possible to take the pawn now? There's nothing to lose. It's not like the queen will be lost or trapped, but white is starting to gain quite a bit of activity. Probably they could get a compensation in the long run, correct? In the long run, because lots of moves have already been made to fall into a line that Stockfish approves. But my friends, that's why Andrei Sipenko made a move in the dark here, right? An unexpected move, but very interesting. The game continued with bishop d7, the best move according to the computers. And here, the rook on file c continues to threaten the pawn. The rook moves to file c. Daneshvar is not a pawn grabber. See, he's proved he has this virtue, right? If it were me, I would have already taken it, given the second chance and the third one too, right? 2 resistances, but the third one, I can't resist. I had to go for the pawn. But here we go on with d, and here, pawn grabbers at the ready. We are distressed to see that the queen didn't capture the pawn, right? Bishop c6 was played, rook c, and now you can't do it anymore, see? The train has passed you by. The game went on with d1 at a6, and now it's d1's knight played by Esipenko. The queen moves to d3, a terrifying lady. The rook moves to the c file, protecting the turret. And here we have a 3 was played, the queen centers here on e4, but such a bold, daring queen, right? Where's she? She stayed in the center of the board, surrounded by the crowd. Knight e3 was played, bishop e7 suggests exchanges. Bishop captures and recaptures, of course. The knight continues to cover here on the g file, and now the rooks are connected. This player has style, right? And here's queen g5, check. f6 is the best move in this position, attacking the queen. The queen goes back to g3, and here's king f7, providing more support for the knight and the g7 pawn, bringing cohesion among the pieces. The rook c3 was played, the queen moves to f... The queen over there, right? Finally managed to exchange here, queen captures, knight captures, and the game goes on between Andres and Penko with a rook at c... And the king returns home from e7, he doesn't need to be here anymore. g3, knight comes back to g6, pawn takes, knight maneuvers to e1, we have the king coming to d... f3 has been played, knight maneuvers to e7, king moves into play. e5, attempting to create a passed pawn, activating that central majority. Here we have the move of the rook d2, and now the bishop a4, proposing to trade rooks. Rook takes, and now g4 has been played as well, trying to create a pawn past Izepenko. We play pawn takes, and now how do we stop this guy? That king is the keeper, he's like Tafarel. Rafa, Tafarel, I'm giving away my age. Okay, it's Casio. Rafa, even Casio is already good. So, he's a good keeper there. The guy's a keeper, right? It's Higuita. The match continued with h5. Higuita, not at all. That was incredible. h5 was played, rook g8, and now the knight comes to f. Bishop e8, attempting to control that advance of the pawns on the king side. Rook maneuvers to d. Bishop comes to f7, rook stays on e column. Be careful, the same column as the king. Knight c6, a fearless move. Rook d1, here the rook is also kind of back and forth. Knight for pawn, we have exchanges, lots of exchanges. And here then Daneshvar has a passed pawn, and so does white. The pawn is attacked twice for this. King e5, the bravest and most active king in the world, attacking the tower. Knight f5 protects the rook, and bishop e... And now Wezepenko is juggling, right? Because the horse is attacked, this tower has to get out of there. Then rook b4 was played, and now bishop by knight, pawn takes. And here's what to play in that position. Will I capture this pawn? Am I going to protect this pawn in any way? None of that. Daneshvar follows with h8, rook attacking the h-pawn pawn. b7's pawn falls, h's pawn falls, and now only black has a passed pawn. Yes, my friends, the match continued with b. Wezepenko is dying to create his passed pawn as well. Rook check, king e1, rook comes to a2, attacking the pawn. Tower a7 also attacks, tower takes, b5, and here a5, everyone has passed pawn. But Daneshvar now has two. We follow with king d2, a4 fires the pawn. Support the house of b3, b6 was played. Rook b3 tries to stop the pawn, we have exchanges. And this ending with Daneshvar with an extra pawn. What does table base say in this position? It says black wins, guys. Why can't you defend the other pawn? You'll have two more. Let's see, it's not that simple. Because the game continued with rook a, and now you can't capture the pawn because this one falls. But now rook b3 cuts the king off the board. We have king e2, king e... Oh, I like this plan. Leave this pawn for later. King d2 has been played, d4 fires the pawn. Rook a6, now the pawn falls. Juicy rook a8, king f... Nice finish here from Daneshvar, advances the pawn here, rook check, the king comes forward, man. And this pawn has now been blocked, the rook is under attack, now the pawn advances, the king advances again, now the pawn is already at f4, beautiful technique here from Daneshvar. This brings up the possibility of the pawn advancing, moved the rook away a bit, sensational, and here goes a tactical move, the pawn cannot be captured. What a move. g2 king, huh? What a spectacular move, because the position isn't that simple. Now you can have a rook check, right? There are several possibilities. Now this tactic is interesting because you play the pawn advance and the rook is under attack twice, right? But nothing is that simple because now king d2 has been played, f2 fires the pawn, rook check leaves the king covered, and the rook is now covering. Oh, the king is immobilized and this pawn is under attack. What to do in this position? Rook a2 exclaims, what a beautiful technique, right? With the following idea, if king plays d3, then the king wins the square e1, and if the rook comes from check, the king is covered up here in d1's house. Then you say, but now the rook covers, rook check moves the king, for example, to e4 square, and the king wins e2 square, and the king himself becomes an umbrella, and black wins. Nice technique, rook check exclaims. So king d1 was played once again, leaving the king trapped, and now what to do? Rook e2 was the idea it would be possible to play d2 too, which is very interesting. Rook e2 was Daneshvar's idea. We followed with the rook g7 and rook e3 thing, and now how to do it to remove the king. For now, king d2 leans against the rook. Rook h3, he's trying to find a way here. Rook g8, rook h2, rook g3, rook g2. Oops, found a way. We now simply continue with the king move. c3, Wezepenko makes the move and abandons the game here. He abandoned it because it can't anymore. Rafa didn't work the balloon, now it worked. There was a delay here. Abandoned because it doesn't work anymore. A possible sequel here. What are you going to play? You're going to capture the tower, right? I don't think Wezepenko played king c3, did he? But let's see a possible continuation here. Let's put the rook on f3, for example. Are you going to play the square, but now the king moves over? There's no way, right? Both squares were occupied. That's great, right? That's why he gave up, because he can't do it anymore. Let's pull the report from chess.com and in a bit look at his next game with the black pieces, because this guy is a phenomenon, right? 95.9% accuracy. 89.8% for Wezepenko. He played better than the super GM, right? His performance was unbelievable. Let's go to the next game. Let's go to the next round. Here's Aiden Sulamani. Did anyone get the reference? Post it in the comments. Aiden Sulamani versus Daneshvar, another pretty strong grandmaster at 2,621 who opens with the king's pawn. And here, my friends, when he plays black, he says, now I'm going to win. I've never seen anything like this generally. When we play white, we play to win, right? Let's see. Here we have a Berlin defense with the bishop on c5. Roque secures the kingdom. h6, bishop leaves, bishop returns to e. You know, I like these lines. It seems like it's wasted time, but it's very uncomfortable to play with this spiked horse and not having a way out, right? If you play, for example, here, the move d6, you no longer have a very simple way to unpin. It's uncomfortable to play in this way, even though the computer says it's fine. Bishop e7 is not a problem anymore. Castling was played now like this. Solid d6, right? Bishop g3, a6 questions the bishop. Rook comes to the e file. Bishop moves to the f8 square. Extremely solid. The pawn attacks the bishop. Bishop comes to the long diagonal. Rook comes to the e file. And here, knight c8. Look there. It's sharp in the opening here, right? It's sharp in theory. Go to this move that maneuvers the knight. Get out of front of the pawn of c. c4 was played. Knight comes to d7. b3, g6, that already controls the f5 square for the future, already gives the g7 square to the bishop, and here c6 was played. c4, we have exchanges. Pawn takes pawn of c, takes queen, comes to a5, and here queen is here in c3. Once again, Daneshvar uses queen and king very well, right? Now the queen starts to be the protagonist of the game again. Rook e3, the queen goes back to c7, b4, rook comes to file c, attacked bishop takes a diagonal step, knight comes to h5, attacks the bishop goes back, and the knight wins that square from f4. I like to see the way Daneshvar plays. He's precise, right? He's solid, he's precise, but at the same time it's forward. Bishop f1 has been played, knight b6, g3 attacks the knight, knight goes back to h5, knight h4 has been played, and now knight on a4. You were told not to throw the knights in the corners. Look what these great masters are doing. Tear up all your books. Of course not. Here's the thing. The great masters know the moments, right? To escape the general rules a bit, right? Chess is not a game of dogma, but the truth is not always valid. It depends on the position. And here are maneuvers. The knights won't be sleeping in the corners forever. So much so that knight b3 was played. Queen comes to d7, knight a5, Rafa. So much so. And now the four knights are in the corner. I'm tearing up my book anyway. Keep calm, everyone. Keep calm. Here the game continued with rook a7 supporting the bishop. Queen comes to g4 proposing exchanges. They exchange queens, and the first knight comes out of the corner with time on the pawn. f3 protects, and the bishop goes in the corner as well. I've never seen that, Rafa. All the pieces are in the corners. They told me to dominate the center. I'm going to tear up the books. I'm going to quit chess. Keep calm. The game continued with king h1, rook a on c7, bishop g1 was played. One more piece here, continues in the corner. Bishop e7, it's immortal from the pieces in the corner. Now this rook, they've got to touch. Both players have. It's not possible. Now he's going to throw the rook here, rook d7 and rook d8, and he's going to put knight e. Okay, bishop f8, isn't that right? Okay, that's the plan. That's the plan. Knight d7 was played, knight g2, bishop comes to g5, knight e3, finally. The pieces are moving forward. The pieces are now advancing. Rook c3 attacks the knight here, attacks the pawn, well defended, but puts pressure. King g2, king g7, bishop to f2, bishop d8. Rafa, he put the piece in the corner. Rafa, calm down. Knight d1. Rafa, it's immortal. Where's the rook going now? Rook c2 was played. Knight to e3. Rook attacked back to c. This rook is desperate that she can't play b7 and b8. All she wanted. Knight f8 too. And here, Rafa lets go of this. Shows the match. E's rook comes to b file. Bishop g5 attacks the knight. Rook to e1 provides protection. Knight to b6. Bishop e2. Rook c3 puts pressure again. Knight d1. Man, what a match. Rook c1. Difficult match. The pieces go to the corner. Rook a2 was played, and we finally got some action. What a genius move. Knight to d5. Now we have action, right? He said that this castling story was a lie. Now his rook is in the ideal position for me to go after it, and this rook will seemingly be without a home, right? Let's see how brilliant of a sacrifice this is. Knight by d5 was played, and now knight b3 causes problems. Why not, pawn? Why by knight, you're asking, and so am I, due to bishop by d5 attacking the rook. You say this rook can't come here due to the knight, but you surrendered a piece, so who knows? I'm going to play here on tower 1, right? You can't play rook a1, so I'm going to play rook b2. I'm going to return a bit of material. It also won't work due to this fantastic sequence with a double check at the end, right? What a calculation by Daneshvar, such precise, spectacular calculation. That's why knight b3 was played, and now the knight is under attack. The rook is under attack. What to do? Daneshvar has it all under control. He returns the piece, really sacrifices the knight, continues to attack the knight here. Rook d2 was played. Why? Now look at this amazing position, right? The knight can't leave, even if you make a move like knight c1. You go protect the rook here, you just take it in c1, right? So there's no defense here. This is a great position from Daneshvar. Great, right? There's no way to defend this knight anymore. That's why the d2 rook was played, allowing the knight to move up at least to the pawn on d6. Bishop takes, rook takes, and here rook c6 provides protection. We have exchanges, bishop e3. For now, Daneshvar has an extra pawn. Here the rook moves to c2. The rook on the 7th rank, f4, attacks the bishop. Here the pawn takes. We have pawn takes, and the bishop under attack moves to h4, attacking the rook that defends the bishop. And now you have it in a few moves, right? Knight f2 is good protection. Bishop d4, followed by knight f... I mean, in the end, it's only the knight on f2 that protects, right? We follow up with bishop d5, check. Bishop covers on f3, we have exchanges, and the rook comes to c. Rook h1 attacks the bishop moves back to d. Man, that's a lie. He's provoking me. He's teasing me. Knight e4 has been played. Rook to a3, he has all the pieces in the corner once again. That's a lie. He's doing it on purpose. Re2 was played, bishop on b. Knight moves to c5, knight at c3 with a check. Rook f2, knight e4 with check, my friends. What's that? Taking advantage of the theme of pinning, aren't we? And that's why in this position, Aiden Sulamani, scared, resigns the match here. He resigned because he can't keep it up any longer. What's that, dude? I've never seen such a crazy game, right? The pieces in the corner, the guy gets everything right. Let's see how accurate this game is. But it was surreal, wasn't it? Just showing a possible continuation here. I don't want to ruin the report, so I'm putting it here. I'll insert continuation. It would be knight takes. Here you can take with rook, right? It's threatening discovered attacks. The knight would have to cover here at c. You could play a rook at c3. You'll take another pawn. You'll be left with a lot more material, right? For instance, rook at a1 could be a possibility. A 5 trying to deflect the defender away from the knight. Bishop at d2 simply takes. And here at a4, another pawn falls. It has 2 disconnected passed pawns. It has a majority of 3 against 2. Good game. Let's check out the report here from chess.com. Look how accurate these guys were. It must have been absurd. 93.2 with 2 brilliant moves. Interesting, interesting. Let's do the procedure. Calling Kramnik, my friends. 2,650 here. Oh, and this tournament is in person. The Chart A Masters is face-to-face. Call Kramnik live here right now. What's that, my friends? And if you like him, there's the nightcap. He's playing now against the champion. Was Sindarov world champion? No, he wasn't. I'm confusing him with the other player from Uzbekistan. His friend Nodirbek Abdusatorov. But Sindarov is a strong player. He has a rating of nearly 2,700. And he opened the match as the King's champion. We now have an Italian opening. Yes, Gioco Piano. Bishop c5 was played with the knight f6, d3, d. Solid as always here. A 6, oh, h. I was told not to play a 6 and h6. There's a master video explaining this. Show me the book. Daneshvar won the Chart A Masters tournament playing a 6 and h6. Any jokes aside, the tip from the Masters is pretty solid, right? You should never play a 6 and h6. When the reason is, I don't know what to play. I think the conclusion is, I've seen whole videos, 20 minutes to half an hour, on this subject. But the conclusion I always arrive at is, don't play a 6 and h6 when the thought is, I don't know what to move. I'll move a 6 and h6. That's not it. That's laziness. That's laziness. You have to find it. Even if the best move is a6, there has to be a reason behind it. And here, yes, the reasons are there's an escape square for the bishop at a... You've been preventing the entry of the bishop here at the g5 square. Or even a knight at g5 if I want to play a bishop at a... So here, there's a whole reason why. The game continues with knight bd. The rooks come into play. Knight at f1, bishop at a7, bishop in his box. Queen goes to ab3, and now what? Rook f8 goes back to defend. No problem. Is this move unsightly? I played rook f8. Is it ugly? It's ugly, but so what? The thing is, would you rather play pretty and loose? So hold on a second. Then a5 was played, and now bishop g4 is attacking the knight. Leaving the b7 pawn, the knight is defenseless. It blew up. Queen for b7 accepts the Sindarov challenge. Lady d7 protects the knight, threatening wonderful attacks on the queen. The queen can still capture in a6. Nothing is as easy as it seems. The match continued with Lady b. A well-fed Sindarov returns, running back. Before his arrival, the defender of the territory. Bishop by f3 is played. G for f3, knight e. He continues to maneuver, horse g3 and d. We keep wondering, will Daneshvar get compensation here? Because he's giving away many pawns. Bishop by a6, now it's 2 pawns down. Is it paying off? F rook attacks the queen. Lady comes to a. d6 queen avoids exchanging queens. Bishop goes back to b. Queen comes to c. Oh my gosh. Attacking everything here, but there's a way out. d4 is played. Queen for b5 captures a piece. But now here we have the bid e for d5. Is that right? And d5 now attacks that pawn once again. Queen for d5 for Daneshvar. And here rook for e5 attacks the queen and the knight. The queen goes back to d8, and here we're saying that the material is equal, meaning black has an additional knight, but white has 3 more pawns. And then the madness begins. Rook e2 was played. Rook moves to column c. Rook c8, man, it's another ugly but necessary move here, isn't it? He's providing support to tear open a c5 and all that. Let's see. Knight e4 was played. We have exchanges. c5 was launched. And here's d5, a passed pawn. And now knight g6. King moves to the home of h1. Queen in h. Whoa, a savage attack. Pressure on the pawn. Support in the house of f. Queen d7 was played. We now have that move. It's a mistake, huh? A serious mistake. The computer suggests you play. Queen on d. Let's see how you can capitalize on that mistake. It's not as simple as it seems, right? You might say, wow, that's a serious mistake. Why? Because the next move is explosive. But what's the next move? It's not very clear, right? It's not convenient to find the next move, but Daneshvar finds it here. It's this graceful move. Queen h5. Oh, what's that, man? Attacking the tower here, heading to f3 house. There's a checkmate attack here, giving the h4 square to the knight. Man, this has gotten far too dangerous. The tower comes to the e3 house to cover the f3 house. But just after simply rook d8, my friends, mysteriously Sindarov resigns the game here. He resigned because he can't do it anymore, my friends. What is this mysterious resignation? Let's understand why he resigned, why he can't do it anymore. Let's insert a possible continuation here. Well, the queen is under attack. You can play the queen to f5, for example, to trade queens. This attack is imminent. The problem is queen d1 with a check followed by knight h4, launching an attack on everyone. All right, so what else can you play here? Queen on c7, maybe moving the queen to safety, already protecting here. The problem is queen d1 again, playing the king to g2, and the knight comes to h4 anyway. And here g5 protects the knight, and this king is too exposed. For example, here queen g, rook g3, my apologies. Lady on f1 giving a check. The king will, oh dear, look where the king has gone. This can't be good. Bishop on e3 attacks the queen. Queen to h2, captures another pawn. Rook on f1 tries to protect the king in every way. But here, for example, queen on e. The rook covers and the knight captures and follows with h4. And here is a good game, right? Too much excess material. Outside, the king is still exposed and white has no compensation at all. It doesn't have any attacks. By the way, there's a bishop here that's under attack, right? And so on. It could go that way. And if you want, you just exchange. But if you're a player who isn't afraid of the opponent's counterplay or anything, you avoid exchanging queens, right? My friends, let's pull up the report from chess.com to see the accuracy of these fantastic players. 93.1% for Daneshvar. Unbelievable, right? I think I better call Kramnik right now, because boy from heaven, he played here. He really deserved to win the tournament here. The Daneshvar, right? Which has therefore achieved 6.5 points here. He won 4 games. The 4 he won playing as black. The rest he tied. Have you ever seen anything like it? I've never seen it. My friends, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the games and the video here. Thank you very much for listening. A big hug to all of you, and until next time. Thanks.